need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Let's dig in. My first question comes from Christina in Rochester. And Christina, my husband is also from Rochester, New York. He's from a small village right outside the bigger city, but we would go to Rochester all the time. His mom just moved away from Rochester, so now we don't really have much reason to head back, except he does have a reunion coming up, high school reunion. So there you go. But thanks for sending in your question, and I can't wait to answer it. Here we go. We are finally upgrading our Ikea bedroom furniture with the Arhaus Miller bedroom set and the Kinnan bed. We are choosing that one in Vance Olive. Since we are redoing the furniture, I want to take this opportunity to put a fresh coat of paint on the walls. I would like something exciting, but also something timeless, something that would go with the hues of our new furniture. The bedroom has 2 north-facing windows, one east and one south. I'm open to dark or light colors. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me describe the furniture because the pictures that you sent me are really good in terms of the architecture, but it seems like none of the furniture that's currently in this space is the furniture you'll be having, because the Arhaus Miller bedroom set is very different than the dressers and nightstands I'm seeing in these pictures. So first of all, it's much more contemporary, whereas it appears now that the pieces that you have are contemporary / transitional. I love the style of these new pieces, and I really do adore Arhaus. I'm planning on using some Arhaus in my design for the downstairs because the pieces really can straddle different style lines and they look so unique. It can be hard to pinpoint exactly where they're from unless you know this website well. But I love the walnut finish on the case goods. So you can definitely see the wood grain. It's a mid-tone walnut. It looks very natural, and yet it has very clean lines and is sleek. I love the fact that it has the rounded dowel pulls. I love the fact that the sides are even rounded. So I think that this is a really lovely choice in terms of the case goods, even though I just have to say it, guys. I just have to say it. I wouldn't buy a bedroom set typically. So I might do 2 of the same nightstand, but then I would have each dresser be different. Or I might have the dressers, the tall and the low, be the same if I was going to do 2 different nightstands. So it does bother me a little bit that you said that you're going to use this complete set because that is not very designerly. But I'm going to look past that and give you some advice. But I had to get it off my chest. Then you mentioned that you're going to be getting the Kinnan bed in Vance Olive. And that's a very deep green olive color. It's a velvet. And this headboard is pretty chunky. Again, rounded edges, really beautiful. It's got curved sides, and it's not so high, which I think will work really well in this room because the ceilings don't appear to be much higher than normal. So I think you're on a good path. The one thing I will say is all of this furniture is pretty dark. You know, the walnut wood tone, while it's mid-tone, it does read dark on their website. And then, of course, that deep olive bed reads very dark and is very dark. Now, you mentioned that you want to do something bold yet timeless. And when I'm hearing bold, I'm either hearing dark neutral, right? Or I'm hearing color. Now, if I was going to choose a color, we already have a prominent color in this room with the olive green. The key piece in this room, the bed in the bedroom, is going to be olive green. So you'll want to create a color palette that has that color as part of the 60-30-10, right? But you're going to need an inspiration piece. Now, you haven't told me what your inspiration piece is for this room. So if you were going to do a Roy G. Biv color for the walls, you would want to derive it from that inspiration piece. You would want to use it as a part of your 60-30-10. And I would never arbitrarily tell you, do this color, do that color, right? Now, we do want to be mindful that we don't want the room to get too cool because, well, for a number of reasons. You don't want any color palette to just be too cool because it's not dynamic and interesting. But also, I'm sure I've told you the tale. Is this TMI? Oh my gosh, this whole episode's TMI. This is why I should never record after 6 o'clock at night. Not only am I a little bit hangry, I'm also a little bit unfiltered. But when I lived in our last space, I had a very blue bedroom, and I was looking to hire somebody to work at our firm to do feng shui because I thought that would be a great addition to our offerings. And in order to truly do feng shui, you have to be certified, you have to go to years of schooling. I love to dabble, and I think I know a lot about feng shui. But if I was going to charge somebody for my feng shui services, I would expect that I had had plenty of education and maybe even some certifications in that, which I do not. So I was going to hire this person. So I had her come over to do kind of an interview and assess her skills. And so I was going to have her look at my bedroom just because that was the room that felt most unfinished, or the room that I felt, I don't know. I just thought that she could kind of sum things up. I already had some feng shui ideas for that room, so I wanted to test her a little bit. But the one thing that she said that was right on is that because the room was so cool, it was shades of navy, slate blue, and gray. I was basing it off of an inspiration piece that was a sort of panorama of the roofs of Paris. And so, if you can imagine that in your mind's eye, that's the exact palette that you'll see: the navy, the slate gray, the lighter grays, the lighter blues. Anyway, she was saying to me that this icy palette in the bedroom is maybe making things a little frigid, not only color wise, but also romance wise. And she was not wrong. At that time, my husband and I had kind of an icy, intimate relationship. Now, it wasn't like we were struggling hardcore, but also I was, raising two toddlers, not in the mood. TMI, guys. I warned you. I warned you ahead of time. And I'm sure some of you have been there, and I'm sure I'm going to be there in just a few months again. Anyway, she said that you need warm colors in this room. You need to light the fire. You need to ignite some passion. And so I got a new rug that incorporated the icy blues, the grays, but also hot pink. And I popped the room with 10% hot pink. Like, I made bold choices. Pretty much the minute she left, I went online to find this rug to really set a huge color palette foundation because I didn't want to change out the artwork. I didn't want to change out the bedding, but I wanted to bring in a bold splash of hot color. And then I got a bolster that was hot pink. Excuse me. I got a throw blanket. I added other touches, and it was amazing. Either it was my mental shift or this dash of hot pink, but it really did spice things up. And so I highly recommend that you think about that. Now, you don't have to go for pinks or reds, even though those are typically the colors of passion. You could do something like something beautiful with a green would be like a yellow ochre, right? And that's warm. Um, Excuse me, I have indigestion, guys. I'm a hot mess. You could do rust, right? So rust would really look great with the olive green. But the thing is, you want to be quite intentional. And typically, instead of creating a color palette first and then finding an inspiration piece that goes with that, I find the inspiration piece first. So I found that rug, knowing that I had to work with navies and grays if I wanted to keep the rest of the items in the room, and looking for something that had that pop of warmth. So I'm going to recommend that you think about that when you're looking for your inspiration piece, because I could see this room getting dark and getting muddy based on the items that I saw. I also think that even though you told me that this room has a good size, an amount of windows, that these cropped curtains over the radiator are not really working for me, and they might be eating up some of that good light. So you want to be thinking about that if you're going to do a dark color. And it's very strange to me that some of the windows are treated and some of them are not. Right now, there's 3 untreated windows and there's 2 windows that are treated. And so you want to keep that more consistent so that all the windows have the same treatment. Um, and that might mean that because there's a radiator under 1 or 2 of the windows, that might mean that you do a blind or something more minimal. So I'm not saying you must do drapes in here, but all of these things need to inform the paint color. And typically, when I'm designing a space, this is full disclosure, I pick the paint color at the end. Now, many of you are saying, Betsy, that's not practical. My painter needs to know my paint colors before I move the furniture in, or I just need to get that foundation going, and then I'll pick something later. And that's fine if you're just doing a neutral. But if you're wanting to go bold, if you're wanting to do these splashes of color or do something really intense, it's quite important that you pick out all the furnishings in advance and pick the color at the end, because I can choose from literally thousands of paint colors, but I can only choose from a handful of inspiration pieces that I love that are going to have both olive green and yellow ochre, right? So this is a way that you can narrow things down and work systematically to make sure that everything looks great together and that your paint color, rather than feeling like an afterthought, feels like an intentional augmentation of the design you've started to create. All right, Christina, you got a dash of TMI, you got some philosophies, you got a little Betsy Smackdown on your bedroom set, a little bit of everything for everyone. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.